Tonight's story from the Bible is the story of Essau and Jacob. This is a story that begins long ago, in a time when the world was still young, and when God was making promises to a family. It is a story about two brothers, born to the same mother and father, but different from each other in almost every way. To understand this story, we must first go back a little, to the father of these two brothers. His name was Isaac. Isaac was the son of Abraham. Abraham was a man whom God had called out of his homeland many years before, and God had made promises to Abraham. God promised Abraham that he would have many descendants, more than the stars in the sky, and that through his family, all the nations of the earth would be blessed. Abraham and his wife Sarah had waited many years for a child. They had grown old, and still there was no son. But God kept his promise. In their old age, Sarah gave birth to a son, and they named him Isaac. Isaac grew up, and when he became a man, Abraham's servant went on a long journey to find a wife for him. The servant traveled back to Abraham's homeland, and there he met a woman named Rebekah. She was kind, and she was willing to leave her family and go with the servant to a new land. So Rebekah became Isaac's wife, and Isaac loved her. But just as Abraham and Sarah had waited many years for a child, Isaac and Rebekah also waited. Rebekah could not have children. Year after year passed, and there was no baby. Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife. He asked God to give them a child, and the Lord heard Isaac's prayer. At last, Rebekah became pregnant. But this was not an easy pregnancy. Inside her, something was happening that troubled her. The babies within her seemed to be struggling against each other. She could feel them moving, pushing, as though they were fighting even before they were born. Rebekah was troubled by this, so she went to ask the Lord about it. And the Lord spoke to her. He told her something remarkable. He said, "Two nations are in your womb. Two peoples will be separated from within you. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." These were strange words. In those days, it was the younger son who served the older. The firstborn son received the blessing and the inheritance. The firstborn son was the one who carried on the family line in a special way. But God was saying that something different would happen with these two children. When the time came for Rebekah to give birth, there were indeed twins, two sons. The first baby to be born was red all over. His skin was red, and his body was covered with hair, like a hairy garment. So they named him Essau, which means hairy. But as Essau was being born, his brother came out right after him, and the second baby's hand was holding on to Essau's heel. It was as though he was trying to pull his brother back, trying to come out first. So they named the second son Jacob, which means he grasps the heel, or he deceived. And so Isaac became the father of twin sons, Essau and Jacob. The two boys grew up together, but they were very different from each other. Essau became a skillful hunter. He was a man of the open country, a man of the fields. He loved to be outside, roaming the wild places, tracking animals, and bringing home game. Essau was strong and rough, a man of action. Jacob was different. Jacob was quiet. He stayed among the tents. He was thoughtful, perhaps more careful in his ways. Jacob did not go out hunting. He stayed close to home. Now Isaac loved Essau. Isaac loved Essau because Essau would go out hunting and bring back wild game, and Isaac enjoyed eating the meat that Essau prepared. But Rebekah loved Jacob. And so the family was divided in their affections. The father favored one son, and the mother favored the other. One day, something happened that would change everything. Jacob was at home, cooking some stew. It was a red lentil stew, simmering over the fire. The smell of it filled the air. Essau came in from the open country. He had been out hunting, or perhaps just wandering the fields, and now he was exhausted. He was famished. His stomach was empty, and he felt weak from hunger. Essau saw Jacob there with the stew, and he said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stew. I am exhausted." Jacob looked at his brother, and Jacob, who was quiet and thoughtful, saw an opportunity. He said to Essau, "First sell me your birthright." The birthright. This was something very important. The birthright belonged to the firstborn son. It meant that Essau, as the older twin, would receive a double portion of the inheritance. It meant that Essau would be the one to carry on the family line in a place of honor. It meant that the promises God had made to Abraham and to Isaac would pass through Essau. But Essau was so hungry. He was so tired and weak. And in that moment, the birthright seemed like something far away, something that did not matter. Essau said, "Look, I am about to die. What good is a birthright to me?" Jacob said, "Swear to me first." And so Essau swore an oath to Jacob. He sold his birthright to his younger brother. He gave it away for a bowl of stew. Then Jacob gave Essau some bread and some of the lentil stew. Essau ate and drank. Then he got up and left. And the scripture says that Essau despised his birthright. He treated it as though it had no value. In a moment of hunger and weariness, he gave away something precious. But the story does not end there. The birthright had been sold, but there was still the blessing. The father's blessing was separate from the birthright, and it was still to come. Years passed. Isaac grew old. His eyes became weak, so weak that he could no longer see. He was an old man now, and he knew that his time on earth was coming to an end. In those days, when a father was near the end of his life, he would give a special blessing to his son. This blessing was more than just kind words. It was believed that the blessing carried power, that it would shape the future. The father's blessing would determine who would prosper, who would lead the family, and who would inherit the promises of God. And the greatest blessing, the most important blessing, was meant for the firstborn son. One day, Isaac called for Esau, his older son. He said, "My son." And Esau answered, "Here I am." Isaac said, "I am now an old man. I do not know the day of my death. Take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the open country. Hunt some wild game for me. Prepare for me the kind of tasty food that I love, and bring it to me to eat. Then I will give you my blessing before I die." Esau listened to his father, and he went out to the open country to hunt, just as his father had asked. But Rebekah was listening. She heard what Isaac said to Esau. Rebekah remembered the words the Lord had spoken to her long ago, before the twins were born. The Lord had said that the older would serve the younger. She remembered this, and Rebekah loved Jacob. So Rebekah went quickly to find Jacob. She said to him, "Listen, I heard your father speaking to your brother Esau. He told Esau to go and hunt game, and to prepare food for him, so that he could give Esau his blessing before he dies. Now, my son, listen carefully. Do exactly what I tell you. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 young goats. I will prepare them just the way your father likes. Then you will take the food to your father, and he will bless you instead of Esau." Jacob looked at his mother. He was uncertain. He said, "But my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I have smooth skin. What if my father touches me? He will know that I am not Esau. He will think I am trying to trick him. Then he will curse me instead of blessing me." Rebekah said to him, "Let the curse fall on me, my son. Just do what I say. Go and get the goats for me." And so Jacob went and brought the goats to his mother. Rebekah prepared the food, making it just the way Isaac loved it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes that belonged to Esau, clothes that she kept in the house, and she put them on Jacob. She took the skins of the goat, and she placed them on Jacob's hands and on the smooth part of his neck. This way, if Isaac touched Jacob, he would feel the hair and think it was Esau. Then she gave Jacob the food and the bread she had prepared. Jacob went to his father. He said, "My father." Isaac answered, "Yes." "Who is it, my son?" Jacob said, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." Isaac was surprised. He said, "How did you find it so quickly, my son?" Jacob answered, "The Lord your God gave me success." But Isaac was not sure. Something did not seem right. He said to Jacob, "Come near so I can touch you, my son. I want to know whether you really are my son Esau or not." Jacob went close to his father. Isaac reached out and touched him. He felt the hairy skin of the goats on Jacob's hands and neck. Isaac said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." He did not recognize Jacob. because Jacob's hands were hairy like Esau's. So Isaac prepared to bless him. But he asked once more, "Are you really my son Esau?" And Jacob answered, "I am." Then Isaac said, "Bring the food to me, and I will eat some of my son's game. Then I will give you my blessing." Jacob brought the food to him, and Isaac ate. Jacob also brought him wine, and Isaac drank. Then Isaac said to him, "Come here, my son, and kiss me." So Jacob went to him and kissed him. And when Isaac smelled the clothes Jacob was wearing, he smelled the smell of Esau's clothes, the smell of the field. And Isaac blessed him. He said, "The smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you dew from heaven and the richness of the earth. May you have an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you, and peoples bow down to you. May you be lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and may those who bless you be blessed." When Isaac finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had just left his father's presence, Esau came in from hunting. Esau also prepared some tasty food. He brought it to his father. He said, "My father, sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" Esau answered, "I am your son, your firstborn, Esau." Isaac began to tremble. He trembled violently. He said, "Who was it then who hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I blessed him. And indeed, he will be blessed." When Esau heard his father's words, he cried out. It was a loud and bitter cry. He said to his father, "Bless me, too, my father. Bless me also." But Isaac said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has deceived me twice. He took my birthright, and now he has taken my blessing." Then Esau asked, "Have you not kept any blessing for me?" Isaac answered, "I have made him lord over you. I have made all his relatives his servants. I have given him grain and new wine for his sustenance. What is left that I can do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me, too, my father." And Esau wept aloud. Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the richness of the earth, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by your sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck." And so the blessing was given. It could not be taken back. Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." But Rebekah heard about Esau's plan. She sent for Jacob and said to him, "Your brother Esau is planning to kill you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while, until your brother's anger turns away from you. When your brother forgets what you have done to him, I will send word for you to come back." Then Rebekah spoke to Isaac. She said, "I am weary of living because of these foreign women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, what good will life be to me?" So Isaac called for Jacob and blessed him. He commanded him, "Do not marry a woman from Canaan. Go at once to the house of your mother's father, to the house of Bethuel. Take a wife for yourself there, from among the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you. May he make you fruitful and increase your numbers. May he give you and your descendants the blessing given to Abraham, so that you may take possession of the land where you now live as a foreigner, the land God gave to Abraham." And so Isaac sent Jacob away. Jacob left his home. He left his father and his mother. He left his brother Esau, who was angry with him. And Jacob set out on a long journey to a distant land. Jacob left Beersheba. He set out on the road toward Haran. It was a long journey. Jacob was traveling alone, walking through unfamiliar land. He walked through the day, and as the sun began to set, he needed to find a place to rest for the night. He came to a certain place. The sun had gone down, and it was growing dark. Jacob looked around and found a stone. He took the stone and placed it under his head as a pillow. Then he lay down to sleep in that place. And as Jacob slept, he had a dream. In the dream, Jacob saw a stairway. The stairway was resting on the earth, and the top of it reached up to heaven. And on this stairway, the angels of God were going up and down. Then Jacob saw the Lord standing above the stairway. And the Lord spoke to him. The Lord said, "I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth. They will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you. I will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." When Jacob woke from his sleep, he thought, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it." Jacob was afraid. He said, "How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven." Early the next morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed under his head, and he set it up as a pillar. He poured oil on top of it, and he called that place Bethel, which means house of God. Then Jacob made a vow. He said, "If God will be with me, and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's house, then the Lord will be my God. And this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house. and of all that you give me, I will give you a tenth. Then Jacob continued on his journey. He traveled eastward. Day after day, he walked across the land, and at last, he came to the land of the eastern peoples. He looked out and saw a well in the field. There were 3 flocks of sheep lying near the well. The flocks were waiting, for the shepherds would water their flocks from this well. There was a large stone over the mouth of the well. When all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone away from the well's mouth and water the sheep. Then they would put the stone back in its place. Jacob went over to the shepherds. He said to them, "My brothers, where are you from?" They answered, "We are from Haran." Jacob said to them, "Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor?" They said, "Yes, we know him." Then Jacob asked them, "Is he well?" They said, "Yes, he is well. And look, here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep." Jacob looked up, and he saw Rachel coming with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. When Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of his mother's brother Laban, and saw Laban's sheep, he went over to the well. He rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well, and he watered his uncle's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel, and he began to weep aloud. He told Rachel that he was a relative of her father. He told her that he was Rebekah's son. Rachel ran and told her father. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced Jacob and kissed him, and he brought Jacob to his home. Jacob told Laban all these things. He told him about his family, about his journey, about everything that had happened. Then Laban said to him, "You are my own flesh and blood." And Jacob stayed with Laban. He stayed there for a month. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older daughter was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel was lovely in form and beautiful. And Jacob loved Rachel. One day, Laban said to Jacob, "Just because you are a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." Jacob said, "I will work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me." So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him, because of his love for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife. My time is completed. I want to lie with her." So Laban brought together all the people of the place and gave a feast. But when evening came, Laban took his daughter Leah and gave her to Jacob, and Jacob lay with her. When morning came, Jacob saw that it was Leah, He was shocked. He went to Laban and said, "What is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel. Why have you deceived me?" Laban replied, "It is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Finish this daughter's bridal week. Then we will give you the younger one also, in return for another 7 years of work." And Jacob did so. He finished the week with Leah. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. And Jacob lay with Rachel also. And he loved Rachel more than Leah. And he worked for Laban another 7 years. So Jacob, who had deceived his father and his brother, was himself deceived. He had tricked his way into receiving the blessing that was meant for the firstborn. And now he had been tricked into marrying the firstborn daughter instead of the one he loved. The years passed. Jacob worked for Laban. And during this time, Jacob's family grew. The Lord saw that Leah was not loved. So the Lord opened her womb. But Rachel was barren. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben. She said, "It is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now." She conceived again and gave birth to another son. She named him Simon. She said, "Because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one too." Again she conceived and gave birth to a son. She named him Levi. She said, "Now at last my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons." She conceived again and gave birth to another son. She named him Judah. She said, "This time I will praise the Lord." Then she stopped having children for a time. Rachel was grieved because she had no children. She became jealous of her sister. She said to Jacob, "Give me children, or I will die." Jacob became angry with her. He said, "Am I in the place of God, who has kept you from having children?" In those days, it was the custom that if a wife could not have children, she could give her servant to her husband, and the children born to the servant would be counted as the wife's children. And so Rachel gave her servant Bilhah to Jacob as a wife. Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Rachel named him Dan. She said, "God has vindicated me. He has listened to my plea and given me a son." Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Rachel named him Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Leah named him Gad. Zilpah bore Jacob a second son, and Leah named him Asher. Then Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a fifth son. She named him Issachar. Leah conceived again and bore a sixth son. She named him Zebulun. Later she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and opened her womb. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son. And Rachel said, God has taken away my disgrace. She named him Joseph. And she said, May the Lord add to me another son. And so Jacob had many children. His family grew large. He had been away from his homeland for many years now. He had worked for Laban for 14 years to marry his 2 daughters. And he continued to work for Laban after that. After Joseph was born, Jacob said to Laban, Send me on my way so I can go back to my own homeland. Give me my wives and children, for whom I have served you, and I will be on my way. You know how much work I have done for you. But Laban said to him, If I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have learned that the Lord has blessed me because of you. So Jacob stayed. And Laban and Jacob made an agreement about wages. Jacob would care for Laban's flocks, and he would be paid with certain animals from the flocks. Jacob worked for Laban for 6 more years. And during this time, Jacob's own flocks grew very large. He became very wealthy. He had large flocks, and he had servants, and camels, and donkeys. But as Jacob grew more prosperous, Laban's sons began to talk. They said, Jacob has taken everything our father owned. He has gained all this wealth from what belonged to our father. And Jacob noticed that Laban's attitude toward him was not what it had been. Laban was no longer friendly to him. Then the Lord said to Jacob, Go back to the land of your fathers, to your relatives, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent word to Rachel and Leah to come out to the fields where his flocks were. He said to them, I see that your father's attitude toward me is not what it was before. But the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have worked for your father with all my strength. Yet your father has cheated me by changing my wages 10 times. However, God has not allowed him to harm me. Now the God of my father has said to me, Go back to your native land, and I will be with you. Then Rachel and Leah replied, Do we still have any share in the inheritance of our father's estate? Does he not regard us as foreigners? Not only has he sold us, but he has used up what was paid for us. So do whatever God has told you. So Jacob put his children and his wives on camels. He drove all his livestock ahead of him, along with all the goods he had accumulated. And he set out for the land of Canaan, to go to his father Isaac. Jacob left without telling Laban. He slipped away quietly, and it took 3 days before Laban learned that Jacob had fled. When Laban heard that Jacob had run away, he took his relatives with him and pursued Jacob for 7 days. He caught up with Jacob in the hill country. But God came to Laban in a dream at night. God said to him, Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. When Laban caught up with Jacob, Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country. Laban said to Jacob, What have you done? You have deceived me. You have carried off my daughters like captives in war. Why did you run off secretly and deceive me? Why did you not tell me, so I could send you away with joy and singing? Jacob answered Laban, I was afraid. I thought you would take your daughters away from me by force." Laban and Jacob talked for a long time. There were harsh words between them, but at last, they made peace with each other. They took stones and piled them in a heap. And Laban said, "This heap is a witness between you and me today." They made a covenant, an agreement. They agreed that this heap of stones would mark a boundary. Laban would not go past this heap to harm Jacob, and Jacob would not go past this heap to harm Laban. Early the next morning, Laban kissed his grandchildren and his daughters. He blessed them. Then he left and returned home. And Jacob went on his way. Jacob was traveling toward his homeland now. He was going back to Canaan, to the land where he was born. He was going back to the place where his father Isaac lived. But as Jacob traveled, he began to think about something. He began to think about his brother Essau. It had been 20 years since Jacob had left home. 20 years since he had fled from Esau's anger. 20 years since Essau had said he would kill him. Jacob did not know what had happened to Essau in all that time. He did not know if Essau was still angry. He did not know what Essau would do when they met again. So Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Essau. He sent them to the land of Seir, the country of Edom, where Essau was living. Jacob instructed the messengers. He said, "This is what you are to say to my master Essau. Your servant Jacob says, I have been staying with Laban and have remained there till now. I have cattle and donkeys, sheep and goats, and servants. Now I am sending this message to my lord, that I may find favor in your eyes." The messengers went ahead, and after some time, they returned to Jacob. They said, "We went to your brother Essau, and now he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him." When Jacob heard this, he was afraid. He was terrified. 400 men. That sounded like an army. Jacob thought that Essau was coming to attack him, to take revenge for what Jacob had done 20 years before. In his fear, Jacob divided the people who were with him into two groups. He divided his flocks and herds and camels into two groups as well. He thought, if Essau comes and attacks one group, the group that is left may escape. Then Jacob prayed to the Lord. He said, "O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, 'Go back to your country and your relatives, and I will make you prosper.' I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, but now I have become two groups. Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Essau, for I am afraid he will come and attack me, and also the mothers with their children. But you have said, I will surely make you prosper, and I will make your descendants like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted." Jacob spent the night there, and then he selected a gift for his brother Essau from what he had. It was a very large gift. 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. Jacob put each herd by itself in the care of a servant. And he said to his servant, "Go ahead of me. Keep some space between the herds." He instructed the one in the light. He said, "When my brother Essau meets you and asks, 'To whom do you belong? And where are you going? And who owns all these animals in front of you?' Then you are to say, 'They belong to your servant Jacob. They are a gift sent to my lord Essau. And Jacob is coming behind us." He also instructed the second servant, and the third, and all the others who followed the herds. He said, "You are to say the same thing to Essau when you meet him. And be sure to say, 'Your servant Jacob is coming behind us.'" Jacob thought, "I will pacify him with these gifts I am sending on ahead. Later, when I see him, perhaps he will receive me." So Jacob's gifts went on ahead of him, but Jacob himself spent the night in the camp. That night, Jacob got up. He took his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 sons, and he crossed the ford of the Jabbok River. He sent them across the stream, and he sent over all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. All through the night, Jacob wrestled with this man. They struggled together in the darkness. When the man saw that he could not overpower Jacob, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, and Jacob's hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go. It is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" Jacob answered, "Jacob." Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob. It will be Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men, and you have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But the man replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed Jacob there. So Jacob called the place Peniel. He said, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." The sun rose above Jacob as he passed Peniel, and he was limping because of his hip. Jacob looked up, and there was Essau, coming with his 400 men. Jacob divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the 2 maidservants. He put the maidservants and their children in front, then Leah and her children, and Rachel and Joseph in the rear. Jacob himself went on ahead, and as he approached his brother, he bowed down to the ground 7 times. But Essau ran to meet Jacob. He embraced him. He threw his arms around Jacob's neck, and he kissed him. And they both wept. After 20 years, the two brothers were together again. The anger was gone. The desire for revenge was gone. Essau had forgiven his brother. Then Essau looked up and saw the women and children. He asked, "Who are these with you?" Jacob answered, "They are the children God has graciously given your servant." Then the maidservants and their children approached and bowed down. Next, Leah and her children came and bowed down. Last of all came Joseph and Rachel, and they too bowed down. Esau asked, "What do you mean by all these droves I met?" Jacob said, "To find favor in your eyes, my lord." But Esau said, "I already have plenty, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." Jacob said, "No, please. If I have found favor in your eyes, accept this gift from me. For to see your face is like seeing the face of God, now that you have received me favorably. Please accept the present that was brought to you. For God has been gracious to me, and I have all I need." And because Jacob urged him, Esau accepted the gift. Then Esau said, "Let us be on our way. I will accompany you." But Jacob said to him, "My lord knows that the children are tender, and I must care for the ewes and cows that are nursing their young. If they are driven hard just one day, all the animals will die. So let my lord go on ahead of his servant. I will move along slowly at the pace of the droves before me, and at the pace of the children, until I come to my lord in Seir." Esau said, "Then let me leave some of my men with you." But Jacob said, "There is no night. I have found favor in the eyes of my lord." So that day Esau started on his way back to Seir, and Jacob went to Succoth. There he built a place for himself, and he made shelters for his livestock. That is why the place is called Succoth. After Jacob came from Paddan Aram, he arrived safely at the city of Shechem in Canaan, and he camped within sight of the city. For 100 pieces of silver, he bought from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, the plot of ground where he pitched his tent. There he set up an altar, and he called it El-Eloh Israel, which means God, the God of Israel. And so Jacob returned to the land of Canaan. He returned to the land of his father, the land that God had promised to Abraham, and to Isaac, and now to Jacob. The years continued to pass. Jacob lived in the land of Canaan. His family grew. His children grew up. But there was still sadness to come. One day, God said to Jacob, "Go up to Bethel and settle there. Build an altar there to God, who appeared to you when you were fleeing from your brother Esau." So Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, "Get rid of the foreign gods you have with you. Purify yourselves and change your clothes. Then come, let us go up to Bethel. There I will build an altar to God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and who has been with me wherever I have gone." So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods they had, and the rings in their ears. and Jacob buried them under the oak at Shechem. Then they set out, and the terror of God fell upon the towns all around them. So no one pursued them. Jacob and all the people with him came to Luz, which is Bethel, in the land of Canaan. There he built an altar, and he called the place El Bethel, because it was there that God revealed himself to him when he was fleeing from his brother. And God appeared to Jacob again. When Jacob returned from Paddan Aram, God blessed him. God said to him, "Your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel." So he named him Israel. And God said to him, "I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and increase in number. A nation and a community of nations will come from you, and kings will come from your body. The land I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I also give to you, and I will give this land to your descendants after you." Then God went up from him at the place where he had talked with him. Jacob set up a stone pillar at the place where God had talked with him, and he poured out a drink offering on it. He also poured oil on it. Then they moved on from Bethel. While they were still some distance from Ephrath, Rachel began to give birth, and she had great difficulty. The labor was very hard. As she was having great difficulty in childbirth, the midwife said to her, "Do not be afraid. You have another son." But Rachel was dying. As she breathed her last, she named her son Benoni, which means son of my trouble. But his father named him Benjamin, which means son of my right hand. So Rachel died, and she was buried on the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. Over her tomb, Jacob set up a pillar, and to this day, that pillar marks Rachel's tomb. Jacob was filled with sorrow. Rachel, whom he had loved so much, whom he had worked 14 years to marry, was gone. But Jacob continued on. He moved on and pitched his tent beyond Migdal Eder. Now Jacob had 12 sons. The sons of Leah were Reuben, the firstborn of Jacob, then Simon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Rachel's maidservant Bilhah were Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Leah's maidservant Zilpah were Gad and Asher. These were the sons of Jacob, who were born to him in Paddan Aram. Jacob came home to his father Isaac in Mamre, near Kiriath Arba, which is Hebron. This is where Abraham and Isaac had stayed. Isaac lived 180 years. Then he breathed his last and died. He was gathered to his people, old and full of years. And his sons Essau and Jacob buried him. The two brothers came together again. They came together to bury their father. They stood together over Isaac's grave. Essau had made his home in the hill country of Seir. The land of Canaan was not large enough for both of them. They had too many possessions to live near each other. So Esau took his wives and his sons and daughters, and all the members of his household, as well as his livestock and all his other animals, and all the goods he had acquired in Canaan. And he moved to a land some distance from his brother Jacob. Esau settled in the hill country of Seir. Esau is also called Edom, and his descendants became the Edomites. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. And so the story of Essau and Jacob comes to a place of rest. Two brothers, born together, fighting even in the womb. One hairy and red, a man of the open country. The other smooth and quiet, a man who stayed among the tents. One brother sold his birthright for a bowl of stew. The other brother deceived his father to steal a blessing. There was anger between them. There was hatred. There was a separation that lasted 20 years. But in the end, there was reconciliation. There was forgiveness. There was peace. When the two brothers met again, Esau ran to Jacob. He embraced him, and they wept together. The blessing that Jacob had taken, the blessing that belonged to Esau, was not taken back. Jacob kept the blessing. Jacob became Israel. And through Jacob's line, the promises that God had made to Abraham continued. But Esau was not destroyed. Esau also prospered. Esau also had descendants. Esau also became the father of nations. The story of Esau and Jacob is a story about many things. It is a story about brothers, about family, about jealousy and favoritism, about deception and its consequences. It is a story about choices, about valuing what is important, about the decisions we make in moments of weakness or hunger or fear. It is a story about how God works through imperfect people. Jacob was a deceiver. He tricked his father. He took advantage of his brother. And yet God chose to work through him. God made promises to Jacob. God blessed Jacob. God changed Jacob's name to Israel. It is also a story about forgiveness. Esau had every reason to hate Jacob. He had every reason to seek revenge. But when the brothers met again after 20 years, Esau forgave. The story reminds us that families can be complicated, that relationships can be broken, but also that relationships can be healed. Jacob wrestled with a man through the night, and in the morning, he was given a new name, Israel, the one who struggles with God. And this is part of the story too, that we struggle, that life is not always simple or easy, that we face difficulties and challenges, that we sometimes make mistakes, that we sometimes hurt the people we love. But the story also shows us that God is faithful, that God keeps his promises, that God is with us even when we are far from home, even when we are afraid, even when we are running away. God appeared to Jacob at Bethel when Jacob was fleeing from Esau. God made promises to Jacob, and God kept those promises. Jacob returned to Canaan. He returned with wives and children and flocks and servants. He returned wealthy and blessed. And when he met his brother Esau, instead of violence, there was peace. The two brothers went their separate ways, but they parted in peace. They parted as brothers. And this is how the story of Essau and Jacob ends. Not with one brother destroying the other, not with revenge or bitterness, but with embrace and tears and forgiveness. With two brothers burying their father together. With two brothers going on to live their own lives, to raise their own families, to become the fathers of nations. The story of Essau and Jacob is an ancient story. It comes from a time long ago, but it speaks to things that are timeless. It speaks to the complexity of families, to the pain of broken relationships, to the power of forgiveness, to the faithfulness of God. And so we remember this story. We remember these two brothers, Essau and Jacob. We remember how they struggled, and we remember how, in the end, they found peace.